Hey guys, it's your girl Eccaia, and you're watching Spill It. It's the show that gives you a glimpse into the performer's mindset and reveals the person behind the persona. Joining us today in the virtual Spill It studio is 25-time world champion martial artist, adrenaline pro athlete, and founder of Trick Like a Girl, Olivia Rando. Olivia began her karate journey at the age of 5 and by the age of 9 had began traveling the world to compete in NASKA, WKC, and WAKO. Through martial arts competitions, Olivia discovered tricking and has grown to love it. Passionate to increase awareness and give recognition to female trickers, she created the Trick Like a Girl movement. Her goal is to inspire and encourage more girls to participate in the sport. Before we get started, I want to shine the spotlight on the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. The SAG-AFTRA Foundation provides vital assistance and educational programming to the professionals of SAG-AFTRA while serving the public at large through its signature children's literacy program, Storyline Online. They believe in a world where all artists can realize their dreams and children are empowered to create their own. To learn more or access resources, visit sagaftra.foundation. If you can, give. And if you need support, reach out. Welcome to the show, Olivia.
Thank you for having me.
The first time I met you was at Neo 7 in 2019. I remember being so happy to see you because I wasn't sure if there was going to be many girls there.
No, yeah, I remember seeing you. It was great to see someone so young getting into it because even I've been to a lot of gatherings and there's rare, really not a lot of girls and rarely someone so young.
Up until I went to Neo, I really hadn't met any other girls that were interested in tricking like I am, and in my area, I'm still the only one that I know of. But what got you interested in martial arts tricking?
So I do sport karate. I compete on the NASKA circuit. So when I first started competing, I had to pick up some tricking for like the extreme forms and weapons divisions where you have to do like one inverted move. So that's where I really discovered it, and I saw a lot of the other competitors like Danny Atkin, Noel Jellison, Kenzie Emery. They all did tricking. So then eventually, as I started training more, I decided to kind of pick it up and proceed with training outside of the limitations of like what might be realistic for competition.
And can you recall the moment where you decided that tricking was definitely something that you wanted to do?
I don't think there was a specific moment. I think I was like very involved with a lot of acrobatic sports when I was younger. So I
Oh.
did gymnastics and I did cheerleading. And then when I started tricking for competition, the transition kind of made sense and it just really blended in. Yeah, it was just like something that from the very moment I started, I think I was very excited to do. And it was something that I've always had an interest in from when I was very young. So I don't think there was like a specific moment, but I definitely really liked it and kept going.
And then did you start gymnastics before martial arts, or were they at the same time, or when did you start gymnastics?
So I started gymnastics probably like when I was like 3 or 4. I was in like a little toddler classes,
Oh.
and I actually started karate a little later. And when I got invited to the team for gymnastics, I was also going for my black belt in martial arts. So I
Mm.
ended up putting a pause on gymnastics so I can focus on karate. And then later I started competing.
You created the Trick Like a Girl community and the Live Love Apparel line of merch to encourage more girls to get involved with tricking and free running martial arts. Why do you think that these are still male dominated activities?
I think a major thing is kind of the intimidation factor. If you're going to a gathering, or even if you're just going to like an open gym as like a gymnast or cheerleader, and you'll see these group of boys just and very little girls, and that as an outsider, that's just very intimidating when you don't have
Yeah,
someone you can like immediately connect to. And then also some of the online discussion that happens on like social media, like Instagram, even like the Facebook groups and stuff, it comes off as very ignorant, and it really
sometimes, yeah.
perpetuates a lot of these stigmas. And I think if you that is your first impression of tricking, it's very
Yeah, definitely.
discouraging, and it prevents a lot of girls from wanting to get into the sport or really consider it even.
Definitely. I'm now thinking back on my past when I first started and now just looking at all this. What is your favorite thing about martial arts tricking?
I think once you get to know everyone, the community is great. Like everyone is so supportive and invested in everyone's success, especially coming from like a competitive sport where that isn't necessarily true. That's great. And then in terms of the like movement itself, I love the creativity and how there's so many weird things you can do and everyone's kind of doing something different. And
Yeah.
I love that.
And do you have a favorite trick combo that you would like to say is your go-to trick combo?
Probably like a Envergado back nine hook, cartful hyper hook, and I actually think that is something that I've been doing for years because it was my
Wow.
competition combo for a while.
Oh,
Um, so
wow.
that's like something that stuck with me for like a very, very long
Yeah.
time.
Sorry, that's impressive, and that's a lot in just one combo. Now picturing this in a form. And what would you say is the hardest thing about tricking?
At least for me personally, I think having a good mindset has
Mm,
always been very challenging. Especially it's overlooked when it comes to training because when you think about training, you think of like the physical aspects or like getting into the gym. You
definitely.
don't think about like having to have a positive mindset and um, being confident in yourself and your abilities. And I always struggled with getting mental blocks, even when I did gymnastics. Really having like a good mindset and good approach to my
Mhm.
training has been one of the like biggest barriers for me.
I've said this before in interviews that I've done is just how the only person who puts limits on you is yourself. And so having a good mindset and just always trying to think about the positive is a huge challenge, I think, for a lot of people. Let's shake things up a bit with our first Spill It segue, which is a speed round of Would You Rather. 3 questions, 30 seconds on the clock. Are you ready?
Yes.
Would you rather visit the International Space Station for a week or spend a week in an underwater hotel?
Ooh, I'm gonna have to go with underwater hotel, I think. Yeah,
Why?
I don't know why. Well, maybe because of all the like life that's down there that we don't know
Yeah.
about, like all the different like fish and organisms. I think space is a little bit more void and a little bit more scary, I think.
See, I'm the opposite way. I have a minor fear of just like all the animals in the ocean just because there's so much that we don't know. And like you said, there's so many life forms. And so I think although it would be great to explore and to be able to just kind of see what's down there, I feel like the entire time I'd be scared just because I've seen way too many shark movies where like the
Yeah,
submarine goes down or something.
that's a good point.
Would you rather be able to read minds or predict the future?
Ooh, predict the future, I think. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
go with that.
That's a really difficult question. I feel like though if you could predict the future, you could almost predict what they're gonna say, and maybe you could
Yeah,
like change
exactly.
their answer or something. So like
Exactly.
it's kind of
Yeah,
like
and there's
a
so much uncertainty going on today. I feel like that would be a little bit more grounding.
or like for example, if like something negative were to happen the next day, you could just be like, okay, so gonna take the bus instead of the car to school. Like you
Yeah.
maybe do something to try and avoid it. Whereas if you don't know, then
Yeah, exactly.
and would you rather have a tattoo of the title of the last book you read or the last TV show you watched?
Last book I read. I think right now I'm watching Outer Banks, and I don't know. I'm not that big of a fan of the show, and I just don't know if
Oh,
I'd want that tattooed on my body. And then the
mm.
last book I read was Beyond Good and Evil. So I think that's a pretty like
Oh, that's actually
it,
pretty cool to have as a tattoo. So,
yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't be opposed to that.
all
Yeah.
right, back to our regular questions. You're also an adrenaline pro athlete. Is there a story there on how that came to be?
So I knew McGuire from NASKA, and I saw like all the different like competitors really preparing for the first adrenaline event. I remember watching it on social media, and I've really followed adrenaline both like as a camp and then when it later evolved into this company. So I've seen them grow and I've been a part of it and I've been going to the different camps. I've been battling for them as well. So I was very invested in them and I think they were doing really great things. So when he asked me, I was very excited.
Okay, let's talk tricking battles. You've been in quite a few. For our listeners who aren't familiar with what that is, could you explain it for us?
So tricking battles are the competition of tricking. Generally it is like two competitors or like teams. So like sync 2 on 2 or 3 versus 3. And they'll do trick passes back and forth, either in like a pass for pass manner, like 3 passes and they go back and forth, or like a timed battle where it's like a minute on the clock. You try to fit as many tricks in as possible.
And how old were you when you first entered your first one?
I think I was 13 or 14. I think it was one of the gatherings I went to in 2018. It might have been Battle of Fury. That was my first trick battle.
And out of all the people you've battled against, is there anyone who you would say really stuck out of the crowd?
Will Coney's. I think he's always been so supportive of me. So being able to battle him took off the pressure of it being a battle, and it was just so much fun. And then in addition, it was the finals at Battle of Fury, and I honestly don't know how I got there. I was not expecting to be there, and I really like just like I realized, oh, I don't have anything to lose. So that took off a lot of pressure as well. And so that combined with the fact that Will is just an amazing person really made it a lot of fun.
And now it's time for Spill It segue number 2 called Fact or Fiction. As quickly as you can, answer the following questions, all right?
All right.
Okay. Fact or Fiction, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong, is a terrible book to read.
Fiction. It's a great book. I loved it.
In Fact or Fiction, Jackie Chan is someone you'd like to meet or work with.
Fact.
And finally, Fact or Fiction, you play the viola.
Fact. I did from like 4th grade through 8th grade.
And for some of our viewers who aren't familiar with that instrument, could you explain to us kind of what the viola is?
So a viola it's like similar shape to a violin, but it has the same strings as a cello, so it's at a lower pitch. But it's a string instrument, looks like the violin. Generally doesn't have the same harmony pieces or melody pieces. It has kind of the more boring stuff. To be honest, but it's a yeah. In general, it is a lower sounding instrument, just that is takes the same form as a violin.
Interesting. Let's talk nunchucks. Definitely my fave, but why did you choose nunchucks over other martial arts weapons?
So I was very young when I chose nunchucks when I really started with them. And I don't know if there was a specific reason. I think I was really interested in like sword, but at my school, at least, everyone on the demo team, it was when was picked up for the demo team that I really started with a specific weapon. But everyone on the demo team did sword, so it was just too much. And then nunchucks was something that I was doing in class in my regular classes, so I think I just decided to stick with that. It was what was comfortable and just what I
Yeah,
knew. And then it worked out, and they're my favorite weapons.
I can agree with that. How old were you when you first started learning how to use them?
I think I was 6 or 7, so it was like 10 years ago.
Oh my goodness. See, it's so funny that you say 6 or 7 because I myself was also 6, so I can 100% relate to that starting very young. And of all the tricks and combos you've learned, what would you say was the most challenging but also the most rewarding to finally master?
For nunchucks or tricking or both?
Let's do one of each. Let's start with nunchucks though.
Okay, nunchucks. I think the back or just general release, like 1.5 spin, catching behind the back. That one, first
Mhm.
time doing like a blind catch, that was very challenging. I still struggle with it. It's
Yeah.
still one of my less consistent moves. And I don't bring it out for competition often.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a very solid. It's a fun trick, especially because you see a lot of bows do kind of the behind the back catch. It's not
Yeah.
something you see with nunchucks a lot.
Now
And
I'm
then
gonna have to try that. I'm a little nervous though, because I've recently just mastered the behind the back toss and I've hit my ceiling and other things quite a few times. Just from throwing it
oh
too high or throwing it completely to the other side of the room. So I'm gonna have to try it, but it'll be a work in progress to do outside. So
yes, definitely. I trained in my garage, and I my nunchucks have hit my dad's car more times than I care to admit. So
oh my goodness. Okay.
yes, I definitely relate. And for tricking, I would say, do you like twists in the combo? I think the first time I landed in combo, I was doing a tornado, cheat nine, hook, cart full, dealer twist. Um, dealer twist is my favorite trick. I love the feeling of it, but I had no idea why I couldn't land it in combo. I was always so close, and then I just put my hand down. So it was just very, very
Oh
frustrating. And it was
yes.
one of those things that I just had to kind of, I think it was more of like a mental thing. So I just had to kind of do it once and then it clicked.
I can actually also relate to that, just the feeling of frustration just because you like, just as a reflex, stick your hand down, you're just like, "I was so
Yeah.
close. If I just didn't stick my
Yeah.
hand down, I would've landed it."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
and also, for just any form of twist, what would you recommend for people who are trying to land one? Because currently I'm working on my B twist, and I think my greatest fear, like we talked about a little earlier, is my mind and just being scared to fall. But, like, what are some tips that you could have for landing any form of twist?
I think if you can get to a gym, working on it into like a mat and just worrying about the twisting, not actually landing it first to get comfortable to the feeling of twisting is great. Um, and then I struggle so much with mental blocks. So it's just super hard to overcome those. I think if you can like there's like progressions too, because I think for me specifically with like twisting is
Yeah.
doing it like horizontally or like inverting, that's the
Yeah,
most challenging part. So
yeah.
if you can like progress, so you do it at like one like almost straight up and down, and then you do it a little bit, you kind of lean back a little bit more and get like more like
Okay.
horizontal, it kind of that helps break like the fear.
Okay, good to know. Because currently I've just kind of been trying to go for it on the trampoline, and it just hasn't been working for me, so thanks. So
B twist is a very, very hard move. Even like it's my worst move. I cannot B twist it, like honestly.
really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like what a lot of people like don't know about me, and they'll like give me a combo and the first thing is B twist and I'm like, "Nope, you're gonna have to stop there."
Again, it's the same thing for when I was working on aerials and tucks and everything. The minute you just, like, let go of that little mind block, it'll happen, but it's just a matter of the letting go of the mind block. Because for a while, it's just one of those where it's like, "What if I fall? What if I hurt myself again? What if this happens?" And every possible thing that could go wrong instead of everything
Yeah.
that could come out of it, so and now it's time to play our final Spill It segue number 3, called Just a Minute. I'm going to give you a topic, and your task is to talk about that topic for 1 full minute. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right. And your topic is tricking gatherings.
Okay, so chicken gatherings, love them. Um, so I would say I've been to a lot. I've been to like Battle of Fury, Neo, Euphoria, Loop Kicks. They're kind of chaotic. Um, I think that's the best word to describe them because there's so much going on, and generally the form they take is everyone's kind of circled around the floor and one person goes
Yeah.
at a time and you try
Yeah.
not to hit anyone. I will say though, my favorite gathering I've ever been to was Loop Kicks, which actually took place over a longer period of time. It was like
Mm.
4 days instead of two, which was
Ooh.
interesting. And I was really concerned about that because that seems like a lot of work. But how they did it is the like first half of the day was like an outing, and then this later part was like the seminars and the tricking. And then because there was so little time each day where you were spent at tricking, everyone was going, and it was like everyone was going hard, and each session was great.
Sorry, I'm just remembering now Neo because I've only ever done one tricking gathering, but everyone just circled around the floor and it was just we watched one
Yeah,
person go and then but the minute someone lands it, like you mentioned, it's really community once you kind of get into it. And so once someone lands a trick they've been like flopping at all day, it's just like huge like celebration, hugs and everything.
yeah,
Unfortunately, we
everyone
couldn't
rushes in.
yeah. Unfortunately, we couldn't do it this year because of COVID, but I'm hoping to resume next year for another chicken gathering because it was awesome, honestly.
Yeah, definitely, me too.
Okay, let's get to know more about you with a few Spillet's just curious questions. As a 25-time world champion martial artist, which I must say is amazing, which tournament do you never want to miss if possible?
Well, first, thank you. I think the I went to the WAKO Worlds in 2018, and I
Mhm.
think any world championship or international tournament where there's a lot of countries coming together is just an amazing experience. Um,
Yes.
and I love traveling, so I like being able to say like, "Oh, I went to Italy for a tournament." That's so fun. That's like an added bonus. But being able to see everyone come together and kind of get that like pseudo Olympic feel is great, and I love that. So I would definitely not pass up on a trip to like the world championships or really any world
Exactly.
event.
That's what I also loved, like, with WKC is how, of course, there were a few people who are only rooting for their country, but, like, there are so many people who are just like, I'm rooting for everyone. Like, you all showed up here, you all earned your spot here. Like, good for you. Just hope you do well.
Yeah.
No, and so it's a lot of fun. And again, it's like just one big community, but it just goes to show like even if you feel alone in the community, you're not. There's so many other people here around you who are there to support you. And so I think that's another thing. It kind of also helps with like mental health as well. So try karate,
Yes.
it's good for mental health.
Yes.
Little advertisements in here. Who are your top three people that you looked up to or who inspired you to get into tricking?
Um, I don't know if I would say there was like 3 people actually. I think like the 3rd spot kind of switches out with whoever I'm really watching or whoever I'm kind of yeah, whoever I'm really kind of like obsessed with their style at the moment. But I think the top 2 for me who are like consistent were Kenzie Emery and Kiki Okubo. Kenzie, she like obviously she kind of pioneered tricking for girls. And
Yeah.
I used to watch her tutorials before like Kojo's and Adrenaline came out. Um, and I would see her at NASKA tournaments, and I think I get a lot of comments saying my style is very similar to hers, and I think that
Yeah.
makes sense because she was really who I was emulating. And then Kiki, she's a good friend of mine, and I love her style and creativity. It's unmatched in my opinion. Um, so I always remember watching her Instagram videos and trying to do all the stuff that she was doing because it just looked so cool and it's so smooth and the
Definitely.
transitions are great.
I think that's the beautiful thing with, like, our world now is how we have so much technology, and, like, that's the best thing with social media, I find, is how, like specifically for anyone in the sports community, is how you have someone to just watch and, like, try and emulate and stuff like that.
Yes, exactly.
And what's the toughest decision you've had to make in the last few months?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think the hardest thing has just been trying to figure out my schedule for the next year and
Yeah,
even for the
definitely.
summer, because there's just so much things I want to do, but not
Yeah.
enough time to do it.
And what were you doing last time you looked at the clock and realized you had lost track of time?
So I was I had a summer research fellowship. I was doing cell culture work, which is basically you're taking care of human cells that were growing on dishes to later use for experiment. I think cell culture is fascinating. It was my favorite set of experiments that I learned over the course of my 2 months. But also, you're in a windowless room and you're at the sitting at this like biohood, which is a machine that recycles the air and has like artificial UV light. So it's like very cut off from like everything that's going on around it. So if you're doing like very extensive work, it just goes by so quickly. And I
Okay,
actually
well, that's
almost
good.
missed my shuttle to go home from work just because I lost track of time. Thankfully, I made it, but it was definitely that
Jeez.
was a major. I always say time does not exist in the solid culture room because of that experience.
Oh my gosh. What are the conditions that bring your best performance to the mat?
Honestly, I think when I'm a little bit angry or a little bit frustrated, those are some of my best performances. Because personally, I struggle with the like really the performance aspect of martial arts.
Yes.
Like I hate going out there and having to look like fierce and like yell. And being a little bit upset makes it less of a performance and more of like a release. So it kind of helps me with my weaknesses a little bit.
Just from my own personal experiences, you took the words right out of my mouth, like, just honestly. Because it's more just kinda like you mentioned, it's just a release, it's not necessarily, like, acting, kinda hyping up
Yeah.
your performance with some, like, yelling and screaming, some really great, like, stage performance, it's more just, "This is what I'm feeling now. Here, take it." And
Yeah,
now it looks like a
exactly.
performance, so perfect. We finish the interview and you step outside and find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What would you do?
Okay, so first things first, I would put as much as I can into a college savings account because college is very, very expensive.
Yes.
Um, Secondly, I would invest some into the stock markets, start saving for retirement now. And then this is the fun answer that I'm assuming what people would be interested in, but I want to travel to Europe. I want to visit like all the countries. So,
Yes,
pending COVID regulations,
of
I
course.
would book my first flight out there.
Definitely. That was a spot on answer. What do you think your unique skill or skills are that have helped you become successful?
I think my stubbornness has helped me a lot. I don't know if it would be considered a unique skill, but I think if you ask my parents, they would say I'm uniquely stubborn. So definitely that has helped me a lot, and, like persevere through a lot, not give up, do a lot of things out of spite, train out of spite, but it worked out in the end, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And what's something that you're not very good at?
Learning languages, I would say, it just never clicked with me in an academic setting. I was always like pretty good in school, and then I just could never sit down and memorize a bunch of words. Just never worked out.
And now you're given an elephant. You can't give it away or sell it. What do you do with the elephant?
Um, build a well, I need to figure out a way to keep it, and I think first things I would probably go look up what they eat and then make sure I
Yeah,
have proper elephant food because I don't want to starve it.
good
Maybe
idea.
like build a pen or something. I think my neighbors might have a little area I can keep it in because they have a lot of land. Um, but yeah, I try to make the elephant's life as nice as possible. Maybe go
Yeah.
on a little ride on it because I see a lot of that at the circus and it seems fun. But yeah, just want to keep the elephant comfortable and happy.
Of course. And what keeps you up at night?
This is a boring answer, but exams. Literally, I there have been many nights that I'm awaiting exam scores and then I just could not sleep until they came out at like
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Oh my
Yeah, the
gosh.
nerves really bring out the worst, but it'll be over soon.
Yes. Yes. Like I know how it's a supposedly a basic answer, but it makes a lot of sense. Those are very important if you want to pass high
Yeah.
school. And like this is your senior year as well, so it's important. So it makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. And what is the best advice you've ever received?
Well, my dad always tells me before going into a tricking session to jump higher and twist faster. I think a lot of times I've landed my best tricks after he just pulls me aside and says, "Jump higher, twist faster." So
Oh yeah.
probably that.
And it's time for our final question of the day. If you were talking to a younger version of you, what advice would you give yourself?
I would tell her to care less about what other people think and to not let that hold you back from doing what makes you happy. Really just go for it.
Amazing. That's all the time we have, but before we go, do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to leave our audience with?
I would probably just reiterate what I would say to my younger self. Don't let any other people hold you back and really just do what makes you happy. If you don't try, you will never know. So always give it a shot.
Awesome. And once we're off air, where can our viewers find you?
At Olivia.Rando on Instagram, or if you want to keep up with the Trick Like a Girl, you can go to tricklikeagirl.com or it's at Trick Like a Girl on Instagram as well.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being ready to spill it with us, Olivia. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you for having me again. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to end here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head on over to our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Like, share, and get involved. Until next time, Eccaia, out.